First, the evidence is mounting all the time that the Albanese government will not achieve its ambitious emissions reduction targets, but it will effectively de-industrialise Australia. Today's Financial Review reports that Labor's current target, which is to cut emissions by 43% by 2030 via an 82% renewable energy target within just 5 years, is increasingly unlikely. And this is because
they're a bunch of galahs down there, they really are. They don't have common sense.
The wholesale replacement of coal-fired power with wind and solar is simply not happening at anything like the required speed. And that's because the economics of it are all dodgy.
That's just called science and maths.
And people are waking up to the environmental damage that comes with wind turbines in our oceans and national parks and the land degradation that these big, massive solar farms bring. But what is happening is the continued skyrocketing cost of power.
Energy prices are higher than I'd like them to be. Of course they are.
With increasingly desperate cries for help from the industries which can't survive without the sort of cheap and reliable electricity that Australia was once renowned for the world over. Indeed, part of the reason our country's been so prosperous to date is that where we couldn't compete with Asia on wages, we certainly could compete when it came to the input cost of energy, because we're rich in natural resources in a way that so many countries to our north are not. Not anymore.
And that's a tribute to Anthony's leadership.
And that's why iconic Australian heavy industries, steel at Whyalla, aluminium at Tomago, plus smelting at Mount Isa, Port Pirie and Hobart, simply won't survive with power prices at current levels. And all of these industry players are currently in negotiation with state and federal governments over the subsidies needed to keep them afloat and to keep heavy manufacturing and jobs alive in this country.
And creating the most jobs in the first year of any government in Australian history.
Much better than hitting up taxpayers to subsidise these industries would be the removal of the policies that are making them unviable in the first place. As I said, these industries only came to Australia because of an abundance of cheap and reliable coal-fired power that made them profitable despite our high wages, our small domestic market, and of course the tyranny of distance. As the Fin reports today, 53% of Australia's electricity is still generated by coal. But that's supposed to fall, under Labor, to just 10% within 5 years. But nothing like the required build of new wind and solar is taking its place. The other big problem is the pushback from regional communities, from farmers in particular, over the thousands and thousands of kilometres of transmission lines that are yet to be built to carry this new power from the paddock to the city. Now, farmers don't want their land ripped up. Australians who want to eat food grown here, they don't want that either. And taxpayers justifiably demand the government explains how we pay for all these mad green schemes that are way over budget and way behind schedule.
We shouldn't be surprised.
And that's before we even get to the backup generation, mostly gas, that's required to keep the lights on when we don't have the wind and the sun doesn't shine. Because intermittent power that's cheap when it's here has destroyed the economics of power that's on 24/7. And that's meant there's been no new investment for years in coal-fired power, which remains by far the cheapest form of baseload power in this country.
A great example of us providing cost of living relief.
Wake up, people. Cost of living is escalating because Anthony Albanese is the worst Prime Minister we have ever had.
And rightly so.
And the tragedy here for anyone who wants Australia to remain a country that makes things, farms things and is prosperous as a result is that there's no hope that Labor will change any of this, state or federal, which is why our energy policy is such a slow motion train wreck. And for what?
Wake up yourselves, Australians. You're taken for a bloody ride here like sheep to the slaughter.